Well, it finally happened to me. Keep listening to hear about my experience with COVID-19. Hey guys, Jennifer here. Today, unfortunately, I'm cracking the code on the coronavirus. So I thought about skipping this week's posting since I haven't really felt up to working on any new videos, but I decided instead that I would post this video about my journey with COVID-19. I wanted to talk about my signs and symptoms and what I've been doing to help myself recover. As you all know, I work in a skilled nursing facility, and we recently had a huge outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. So as it stands right now, more than half of our residents and staff are sick from the virus. So this virus is very real and very contagious. Since this virus is so new and different for every person that becomes infected, I'm going to go day by day up to today, since every day for me was just a little bit different than the one before. So let's start with day one. I woke up on day one feeling fine. A little tired, but I blamed it on the recent stress at work with the virus spreading and didn't think much about it. Towards mid-afternoon, I started coughing a little and just felt like my energy levels were not up to normal, not up to par. So I decided to get in a quick workout, thinking I just needed to get my heart pumping and fight off some of the stress. The workout, though, left me even more exhausted, and I ended up going to bed pretty early that night. So day two, Friday. I woke up on this day feeling like I had a sinus cold. My nose was completely stopped up, and I had to breathe from my mouth quite a bit. But I had no other COVID-type symptoms, and since I deal with sinus colds most every year, I really wasn't worried about it. I wasn't running a fever, my cough was mostly gone, and I felt relatively fine. So I took a few vitamins and some sinus medicine, and off I went to work. It was later that night when I got the call that I had tested positive for the coronavirus. So we had just tested Thursday the day before, so Friday night was when I got the call saying that I was positive. At this point, I was still dealing with quite a bit of sinus pressure, and I continued to take sinus medicine that night to help me sleep. So on to day three. At this point, I am now quarantined in our upstairs bedroom with a bed, a TV, and a computer. And thankfully, I had all three of those. So my dear husband had to become my caregiver, though I feel I'm quite easy to support. I just need an occasional bite to eat and some clean clothes. On this day, I still had a lot of congestion. It felt like everything was just sitting right here in my nose. And I had more fatigue. But I think the worst part was having to get used to being isolated upstairs without having just the rest of what I'm used to having around me. Thankfully, though, I have some amazing girlfriends that brought over some soup, some vitamins, some tea, and flowers, which really helped to brighten my day. So at this point, my daily regimen consisted of Mucinex Sinus Max, echinacea, vitamin D3, and vitamin C supplements. I still had an appetite today on that day, and I was still able to taste my food. But due to the fatigue that started setting in, I spent a lot of time in bed watching TV. But really, all in all, it wasn't too bad of a day. And then there was day four. So I'm going to say that this was probably the worst day that I had. I woke up with a ton of sinus pressure and was coughing a little bit more. I also felt way more fatigued today. And so I decided that I would do the same regimen that I had the day before. I took the Mucinex Sinus Max and all the vitamins that I'd mentioned previously. But today I was also given this awful tasting anti-plague concoction. It was made up of apple cider vinegar, garlic, roots, and herbs that I can't really even pronounce. It was something that was sent to us by my husband's sister from Utah. It really was quite terrible tasting, so I hadn't yet lost my taste, but also it was probably very, very good for fighting off this virus, so I managed to get it down, and I really tried not to complain too much about it. On this day, though, I did not feel very hungry, and I had to remind myself to drink lots of water, so I just really didn't feel like doing much at all. I also remembered trying to get on the computer, but I didn't have the energy or the ability to concentrate on the screen. So I spent most of the day in bed between naps and watching football. I still wasn't running a fever, and I still was not experiencing any body aches, but the fatigue was real this day. So, on to day 5. I woke up feeling a bit better today. I continued to stick to my same sinus medicine and vitamins with the addition of fish oil. So I started taking fish oil today also. And so at this point, I'm taking the fish oil, the vitamin D3, the echinacea, the Mucinex Sinus Max, and the anti-plague syrup. All the while trying to stay hydrated with water and with Gatorade. It was on this day that I started losing my ability to taste. And I have to say that that's really quite weird, if anybody's ever had to go through that before. So when I was eating, I would look at the food and my brain knew what the food was supposed to taste like. So it took me a minute to understand that I wasn't really tasting it. Everything just, nothing really had much of a flavor. If things were really sweet, I could taste the sweet. If things were spicy, I could feel the spice in my mouth, kind of the same burning, but I couldn't actually, I don't feel like I could taste the spice itself. So really, really a weird thing. I felt less congested today, and I had more of a runny nose. So instead of it just kind of all stopping up, I was having to blow my nose a lot more today. However, today, one of my new symptoms was a gurgly stomach. My bowels stayed pretty well in check, thank God. But after eating anything, I felt my stomach just really felt kind of queasy and unsettled, just really rumbly. And I felt like I needed to just kind of lay down. I didn't feel as tired today though, and I managed to actually spend quite a bit of time working on the computer. So my concentration and my ability to think clearly was also getting better. Still no fever, still no aches, and still no shortness of breath. I will also say that my oxygen levels stayed at 99%, so that's almost 100% normal, so my oxygen levels never dropped either. So, on to day 6. On day 6, the isolation was starting to get to me a little bit, so I have to say that I have every bit of empathy for my patients who have had to live this each and every day since March, when our facility stopped allowing visitors. Just the comfort of a hug when you can't have it is just downright awful. And I just feel so bad for these people, for anyone that's having to go through this and having to live with this or deal with this at any amount of time. It's just really bad. So today my symptoms were continuing to improve. My sinus pressure was getting better. However, I was still taking my sinus medicine, vitamins too. My appetite was okay, and I felt like my taste was a little bit better than the day before. My stomach still felt a little uneasy too, but I wouldn't say that it bothered me quite as much. Day 7. I felt pretty good on this day, except for a headache in the morning. My appetite was so-so, but today I really craved liquids. So I don't know if over the days leading up to that day, if I wasn't quite getting enough liquids in my system and maybe I was becoming a little dehydrated. But today, as I started feeling better, I noticed that I needed a lot of things to drink. So I wanted all of the drinks. My sinus congestion was better, but not completely gone. A little cough, but nothing concerning. My big victory today was managing to stay awake all day without a nap. So that was a big deal. And I was able to work on things, a lot of things on the computer, being able to concentrate on things, think through things, which was really, really nice to feel like I had that ability to do again. I'm still taking sinus medicine at this point, and as well as my usual vitamins. So on to day 8. That brings me to today. 1 week from when I tested positive for the virus. So I slept last night without taking any sinus medicine, not necessarily because I didn't need it, but because I was out of it. And I have to say I actually did sleep, and I slept all through the night without any trouble. But I did wake up today feeling a little more congested and coughing a little bit more. So along with my usual medicine, I did take my daytime sinus medicine and my vitamins, but I also added a spoonful of what is called Rocky Mountain throat syrup that my girlfriend sent over to me, which seemed to help my cough quite a bit. So that was good to have. My taste and smell are still quite dull, and my appetite is still fairly okay. I'm not eating as much as I'm used to eating, but I'm also not doing near as much as I was used to doing before either. So that's where I stand. I still have never had a fever. I've never had shortness of breath, no trouble breathing, no muscle or body aches, and no sore throat. But I did or still do have congestion, a minor cough, headaches, fatigue, upset stomach, and the loss of taste and smell. So I hope that my symptoms continue to get better and that I continue to improve. I'm really ready to get back to work so that I can continue to help my patients get through all of this, both physically and mentally. So for me, getting back to work requires a 14-day quarantine from the day that I tested positive, plus getting rid of being asymptomatic, so not presenting with any symptoms. So I hope that given another 4 or 5 days that this just clears up completely and I'm good to go. So for you caregivers out there, my best really non-medical advice is to treat your symptoms first, whatever they may be. So for me, they're mostly sinus related, so I treated it with sinus medicine. But for others, if you're having a cough, take cough syrup. If you're running a fever, Tylenol would help reduce your fever. They make flu type medicine if you have the body aches and things like that. So treat what your symptoms are, because it's going to start making you feel better. And then of course, try to stay really hydrated and eat good, healthy foods. So I found that that's probably one of the hardest things to do, remembering to drink often and enough, getting enough fluids in me, and remembering to eat even if I didn't feel hungry, that it was a necessity to do. So make sure that you're doing that. Also, vitamin D3 and vitamin C are good vitamins if you're looking for something like that, because they promote immune health and healing. I would also say that anytime that you get a chance to go and spend some time out in the sun, listen to your favorite music, anything, staying in touch with your loved ones, anything that you can do to kind of brighten your spirits, do that, because this can get really depressing really quick. Also, if you're worried about your oxygen levels, you may want to think about purchasing what's called a pulse oximeter. They look like these, and they just fit on the end of your finger, and you can use any finger. It really doesn't matter which one. And it's going to show you a number on there of your oxygen levels. It'll also show you your heart rate, but your oxygen levels, good oxygen levels, are going to range anywhere between 90 and 100. So 100% is the best you can be, and you want to be as close to that as you can. 92, 93, 94, you're still okay. But if you start dropping below that, you may want to consider calling a doctor and getting more information, because your oxygen levels can be really important, and it makes a big difference on your lung support and how your lungs are functioning, what your lungs are doing. And of course, we all know that this is a respiratory virus. So if your lungs start not doing so well, then you need to probably call your doctor at that point. So And of course, if any of the symptoms that you have worsen over time, if you have any trouble breathing, then you want to call your doctor or drive straight to the ER if you think that you need to. Okay, so I know this video was long, but I hope that it helped shed some light on this nasty, nasty virus. And I hope that you all stay well. Until next time, good luck cracking the code.